how did you learn they were dead?
Wendy's mother had gone out into the woods looking. She just knew something wasn't right.
He said, I went to bed that night, I got up and they were gone. You gotta get your game face on and get to work and try to figure out what happened to them.
We believe that Wendy was strangled to death, and this man had to look at his own son and had to conclude, he's a witness against me, and I can't have that.
Was there anything in particular which implicated them?
She overheard Payton screaming, Mommy, get up, Mommy, get up, Mommy, get up.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Exposé takes us to Talmadge, Ohio, where a single mother and her 5-year-old son suddenly disappeared from their apartment. 2 weeks later, the bodies of Wendy and Peyton Ralston were found near their home. They had been murdered, and police suspected the killer was someone they knew. As investigators looked at those close to Wendy, her checkered past included numerous lovers and sugar daddies that she leaned on for money. The pool of potential suspects was immense, taking investigators through twists and turns to catch the killer. It was the morning of August the 7th. A frantic mother filed a missing persons report for her daughter Wendy and grandson, whom she had been unable to reach.
Talmadge Police and Fire. I have a daughter that I'm very concerned, and I called the hospital, and they suggested I call you.
3 days later, Wendy's mother Marie visited her daughter's home. Getting no answer at the door, she searched behind the home for any sign of Wendy or Payton.
Wendy's mother had gone out into the woods looking. She just knew something wasn't right. She didn't feel her daughter would have gone away. She found what essentially was 2 small bundles wrapped with like a bed sheet, and then she immediately called the police, and our officers came out.
Detective Bohan joined responding officers and the medical examiner at the disturbing scene. There was a large amount of insect activity and what appeared to be large bones in the bundles.
We had numerous people come out to the scene, and I was told that we probably have the remains of bones that represent probably Wendy and her son Payton. And that was right behind their house, which is 574 Stone Creek, and it was found in a dense wooded area, and that's where the bodies were found.
During the week that they were missing, the whole neighborhood was smelling decomposition, and they just thought that a deer or something had died in the woods. She had to close up her windows and things in the end of July because the odor was so bad.
So I know you see a lot of things, but what was it like for you to be working on a scene like this?
So when I arrived on scene, the medical examiner for the county was already on the scene as well. One of the packages had been kind of pulled open to expose the bones. The smaller package that was wrapped in a green blanket was still intact. And so we opened that, and immediately you saw a human skull and a giraffe stuffed animal in with the remains. So we knew they were human remains.
Especially having kids of my own, you know, the emotions, you come into the job expecting to have to deal with this sometimes, especially when you come in a detective, but once you're actually dealing with it, yeah, it does kind of hit a little bit. And you do, unfortunately, represent, oh my God, you know, what if this was my child? You train for this, you gotta get your game face on and get to work and try to figure out what happened to them, because you're the one that needs to solve this.
The bundles contained the remains of an adult and a small child. A state of Ohio criminal investigation team documented the crime scene and what was now a murder investigation.
We knew that it was behind this residence where we had missing people. They could hear a male's voice saying, "Hey, is somebody back there? What's going on?" Turns out that was Dan Ty.
Wendy's mother had told police that her daughter shared the apartment with her 5-year-old son Payton and his father, Dan Ty. At this point, nothing suggested that Ty was involved in the deaths, but police couldn't be sure.
At that point, we wanted to get Dan Ty locked into a statement as soon as we could.
So when Dan spoke with detectives, what was his demeanor like?
He was pretty calm for the situation, knowing that possibly his 5-year-old child and his ex-girlfriend was found. We pretty much knew, it was going to be them at that time, and he was not expressive about it.
Ty told investigators that he and Wendy had an on-again, off-again open relationship. He claimed that Wendy had taken their son on a vacation with one of her boyfriends on July 23rd, 17 days earlier.
He said, "I went to bed that night, I got up and they were gone." And he's like, "I didn't think much of it, but they just left."
He was talking a little bit about Payton, but mostly his conversations were all about these other men, and check her phone records and check her computer records and look at her bank accounts.
While detectives continued the interview, the medical examiner team documented everything that may have been in contact with the deceased. They discovered that the bodies had been moved from near the fence to a spot deep in the woods, the spot where Wendy and Payton were found.
We found some old electrical tape just in with the weeds. And so the presence of that around Wendy's body, and then also at the first decomposition site, also kind of links that as well.
Investigators would have to do a deep dive into Wendy's many relationships, looking for someone who might be connected to the murders. Emotions were high, and they desperately wanted to find the killer, however long it took.
She overheard Payton screaming, "Mommy, get up, Mommy, get up, Mommy, get up."
Investigators looked closely into Dan Ty's claims that Wendy Ralston had gone on vacation with a boyfriend 2 weeks before she and her son were found dead. The process was long and arduous. It required numerous interviews to confirm alibis of the men who knew Wendy. The investigation was further complicated because Wendy used several burner phones to contact the men. So with so many boyfriends, where did you begin your outreach?
So we were doing our best to try to track down where she might have been. We were sending out subpoenas for a lot of the electronic services like Facebook and things. And because she had left her purse, the officers noted there didn't seem to be a lot of things missing from the home for someone who had been gone for 10 days. So we were trying to get the cell phone number, and she had a few of them. She had a pay-by-the-minute phone back then and another couple phones. And so we were trying to get with providers to ping her phone and get a location on them.
Ty claimed that several of Wendy's boyfriends paid her for sex, something she had been engaged in for years. Police knew that the men might be less than truthful about their contact with a woman who had been found murdered. How did you examine Wendy's history and the contact that she may have had with the many men she knew?
We subpoenaed all of Wendy's phone records, Wendy's emails. We found these guys, we interviewed them. We had alibis for every single one of them.
You know, her background was a bit checkered. She had solicited in the past. In the days leading up to her death, she was trying to reach back out to some of these men that she met on websites to get money to pay her rent. And that was the real flurry of activity on all of her social media and text messaging, and that really clouded the investigation for a period of time.
Investigators then learned that Wendy had an ongoing relationship with one man. They wondered if there may have been jealousy between Payton's father, whom she lived with, and that boyfriend. Who was this man to Wendy?
A legitimate boyfriend, I guess you could say. At this period of time, he had broken up with her. There was no contact prior to the exact time that we believe the homicide happened, which was most likely around July 23rd.
In the midst of the investigation, the medical examiner completed autopsies on both victims. The advanced state of decomposition made finding a cause of death difficult.
There was a fracture to her hyoid bone, which is in the throat. It's consistent with strangulation. There was a handkerchief that we found that had some blood stains on it, Payton's blood. He just put a handkerchief over his nose and mouth and smothered him.
Investigators then discovered information critical to the timeline of when Wendy and Payton were last heard from on July 23rd. What was the last communication anybody had with Wendy?
She had a text message thread going, and this guy was like, "Hey, I'd love to see you. Are you doing anything tomorrow?" And she's like, "No, I'll be here all day." So here she's texting a guy saying, "I'll be here today when you come. I don't have anywhere to go but to return a movie." And then you have Dan saying, "Yeah, she went on vacation with the guy." Good, and she replied to that comment at 10:15, and that is the last electronic signal of any kind we have.
One neighbor overheard at 10 o'clock in the morning, Payton screaming, "Mommy, get up, Mommy, get up, Mommy, get up," for a couple minutes. We're talking about the day that it happened, the 23rd.
The information casts doubt on Dan Tighe's claim that Wendy and Payton went on vacation around this date.
The very next day, as a data burst was received by her phone, and cell towers could triangulate the location, and it was right behind 574 Stone Creek. 2 weeks later, we start finding pieces of that cell phone that had pinged.
Police began to narrow their focus on the man who was most closely tied to Wendy and Peyton Ralston.
It was a circumstantial type of evidence, but everything just pointed to Dan Tighe.
Having fully vetted the alibis of men who knew Wendy Ralston, including some who paid her for sex, police were now back where they started, with her live-in boyfriend, Dan Tighe. Wendy's mother and neighbors described a volatile relationship that included incidents of domestic violence. It was very different from what Dan Tighe told police.
His story wasn't adding up, and the forensic information that we were getting was still plotting pieces of evidence in that location, and the neighbors were still testifying to what was going on around that time. Every piece of this evidence, every testimony from a neighbor or a witness, put them together in a timeline and then compare them to Dan's version of events. And it became very clear once we were able to gather all of this information, filter it out, and compare it to his story, that he was lying.
It was a circumstantial type of evidence that really we had to build up around this case. Was Dan Tighe the person of interest right from the start? Of course he was. But we did not want to make a mistake and arrest him too soon without us investigating it. So we put every piece of the puzzle together, which took us some weeks. I think we knew Dan Tighe was the main suspect.
Detectives then discovered a smoking gun that tied the victims to Tighe, as well as incriminating evidence that would help investigators build a case against the killer.
On top of the refrigerator in the home was a multi-pack of electrical tape. A forensic analysis from that roll of tape in the home matched one end of the tape that was still around Wendy's body or her remains. The other end of the tape around Wendy's remains matched the tape that was found at the first decomposition site. So her body is linked via trace evidence to the first decomposition site as well as the roll of tape in the home.
If the killer wasn't Dan Tighe, then the killer would have came out, killed Wendy and Payton, moved their bodies up into the woods, and then came back into the house and put the electrical tape back on top of the refrigerator. It was great evidence.
Hoping to get Tighe to tell the truth about what happened to Wendy and Payton, detectives Bohan and Chochola pressed him to take a polygraph. He took the polygraph, so what were the results?
The polygraph examiner basically told him that you failed miserably and you have something to do with these deaths and you might as well tell us what happened. And Dan just said, I want a lawyer. When we went back outside, his first question was, so do I go to jail now? And we said, no, you're not going to go to jail. We just got to find a place for you to stay. We had more work to do as detectives.
Investigators still had a lot to do before they could present the case to a grand jury, including filling in the blanks of what happened on July 23rd.
So what do you think happened between Ty, Wendy, and Payton?
My best guess would be that somehow, whether he started it or whether she started it, another fight took place, and whether he intended to or whether he did what he had always done, physically choke, strangle, and it went too far, we don't know, which prompted Payton to do the mommy get up, mommy get up, mommy get up. My best guess would be that Wendy was strangled to death, and at some point in time, this man had to look at his own son, this 5-year-old boy, and had to conclude, he's a witness against me, and I can't have that. Payton saw him strangle Wendy, kill her, and now he had to do something about it. Smother him.
It was circumstantial evidence, but it was just the more we looked into it, the more stuff we gathered, all pointed to Dan Ty. A 31-year-old female, a 5-year-old boy that had their whole life in front of them that was taken.
Dan Ty was tried and convicted of the murder of Wendy Ralston and his son, Payton.
Your actions are incomprehensible. They are monstrous. You declined to make a statement. You took that boy and his mother and you discarded their bodies like trash, and you left them there for the maggots to eat while you sat in the house and you ate pizza.
He received 2 life sentences for the murders.
So what feeling did you have when he was held accountable for what he did?
You're talking about a 31-year-old female, you're talking about a 5-year-old boy that had their whole life in front of them that was taken. So obviously, it was very emotional.
As with so many murder investigations, those closest to the victim are often the ones to fear. And this was true of Dan Ty. And now it's time for today's Safety Spotlight. The tragic murder of Wendy Ralston and her young son Payton at the hands of her ex, Daniel Ty, demonstrates how domestic violence can escalate to murder. Unfortunately, this scenario isn't entirely uncommon. In the vast majority of intimate partner homicides, there had been times of physical abuse before the murder. If you notice changes in behavior, for instance, an escalation of anger, unfounded accusations, or withdrawal from the family, these are red flags that should not be ignored. Trust your instincts and seek assistance. If these signs are warning you there's a problem, believe them. If you are the victim of domestic violence, you're not alone. There is help. Contact domestic violence shelters and support organizations. Seek professional counseling and understand the legal protections available to you, such as restraining orders or protective orders. And especially when children are involved, call the police or the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. I'm Nancy O'Dell. For all of us here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe.